Good morning. I wanted to go ahead and call this press conference to order. Para los medios de comunicación de habla hispana, también vamos a proveer comentarios en español, así es que no se preocupen. And for you English language outlets, I speak English too, so don't worry. We wanted to bring everybody together on this very important day when we have an understanding that the President is going to be issuing some executive orders at the federal level. Now, at the state level, we've been monitoring at the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus the bills related to turning local law enforcement into federal immigration agents, and there have been a number of them. There are about 15 bills related to this concept, and it is commonly known as many of you have written about, sanctuary cities. We wanted to contextualize this issue for you so that you can realize where it might sit in terms of priorities for the state. I'm Rafael Anchia, chairman of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus. Next to me is Senator Silvia Garcia, the chairman of the Senate Hispanic Caucus, and I'm very grateful for the members of the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus and allies that are with us here today. While we have very pressing issues like improving our public education system, we have hundreds of children dying in the custody of Child Protective Services every biennium. Many members in the legislature have chosen to focus on this sanctuary cities issue. And some of the bills that have been filed are very draconian. They model the unconstitutional Senate Bill 1070 from Arizona, and others are equally difficult when they focus on the mandatory honoring of ICE detainers by local law enforcement. And the charts that you have both to the left and to the right contextualize the issue that we're really talking about. The first one, I will just draw your attention to the one on the left, and it is Texas as a percentage of total ICE detainers nationwide, right? So while you will have some politicians that will lead you to believe that this is an epidemic problem that must be dealt with as an emergency item in this session and warrants 15 bills, the reality is that the number of detainers in the state of Texas as a percentage of total declined detainers nationwide is about 0.7%. Doesn't even reach something that is statistically significant of 1%. What makes it even more telling is that within the state of Texas, and this is the chart that you have on the right, within the state of Texas, total ICE detainers requested versus those that are declined, it is 0.22%. And so what the authors of these bills are doing is they're asking to implement a very blunt state response to what is a local law enforcement issue. In fact, we ask our local law enforcement to do a lot of things, most importantly to keep us safe. And the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus feels that if these bills pass, it will actually make us less safe. Because what we would be doing is injecting state requirements on local law enforcement related to prioritization of resources and related to community policing. Community policing, where they've developed, local law enforcement has developed relationships with local immigrant communities for, in some cases, decades, and now the state government is going to require their local police officers to act as immigration agents and erode public trust. So we're going to have a couple of different perspectives today. We're going to be talking about law enforcement issues. We will also be talking about the negative implications of these sanctuary cities bills on business and also the faith community. So with that, I'll turn it over to my Senate friend and colleague, Silvia Garcia, so she can offer some comments.
Thank you, Representative Anchia, and it's certainly a pleasure for me to stand this morning with my colleagues from the House and allies from the faith community, business community, and law enforcement community. We must ask our state leaders to stop this rhetoric against our immigrant families and to stop scapegoating the people of Texas that are hardworking families in this great state. Law enforcement already cooperates with ICE, and they do so in many ways that meet their local needs, and I need to underscore that. We do not need to be dictating from Austin. We need to let law enforcement do what they think is best for their communities. The rhetoric and policy proposals to force more local enforcement and immigration laws is undermining their ability to protect their communities. Many of our sheriffs, police chiefs, and local elected officials opposed this legislation in 2011 and last session, especially the ones at the border and in large urban communities like mine in Houston. Do you really think that they don't know what they're talking about when they say that it will make communities less safe, or that victims and witnesses to crime will not be willing to cooperate, or that will make community policing even more difficult? Our local enforcement officials know what's best. This proposal will potentially subject our local jurisdictions to huge legal liabilities and will open the door to racial profiling. Call it sanctuary cities, but I call it what it is. This is an opening door to racial profiling. Additionally, these proposals would place an unfair burden on local officials, including DAs, sheriffs, police chiefs, and mayors, by forcing them to choose between what they believe is the right thing to do in their community or infringing on state law. I call on all my colleagues to say no to this racial profiling bill and call on all of us to join together hand in hand to protect our communities and to keep our families safe and home. Let our city and county officials do the job they were elected to do, and that is keep us all safe without any interference or direction from Austin. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite up Bishop Joel Martinez from the United Methodist Church. He's from San Antonio, and he's going to offer some perspectives related to what this type of attack on the immigrant community does to members of the faith community. We know that previously moribund churches throughout this state have been revived by our immigrant populations. And these are our friends, our neighbors, and people of faith. And we invite the bishop up now to talk about his perspectives on the issue. Thank you, Bishop.
Thank you. Appreciate the invitation from the servants, public servants who are standing behind me and to the side, and others who serve in the public square, if you will. I'm thankful for your service. It's great that we live in a country where people can exercise their citizenship before and with their neighbors. I want to read a statement entitled, "The Church, Faithful Witness to Welcoming Communities." From the earliest sacred scriptures in the Bible, the theme of welcoming the stranger and the sojourner with compassion and mercy recurs again and again. In Exodus, "You shall not wrong or oppress a resident alien, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." From Leviticus, "The alien who resides with you shall be as a citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt." From Deuteronomy, "You shall not deprive a resident alien or an orphan of justice." This spiritual heritage, which I know is shared by many of you in this room, from Abraham to Moses and all the prophets, was a firm ground and foundation for Jesus' ministry to the pushed down, the pushed out, and the pushed around, and the excluded of his time. It is out of our faith teachings grounded in the Bible and modeled in the life and ministry of Jesus, who identified himself with strangers and aliens when he said of himself, "I was a stranger and you welcomed me," Matthew 25, that we do our work of justice and compassion. So our faith practice requires that we practice compassion and welcome with God's children, especially those who are sojourners among us, as they seek bread and justice and mercy. Jesus himself remembered beginning life as a refugee in Africa, specifically in Egypt, for he and his family were persecuted and their lives were threatened by King Herod. In the United States, the church and other faith traditions are in service to people of all races and nationalities, cultures, and languages. We must all be mindful of our immigrant heritage, as generations of our forebears settled among the native peoples on this continent. This memory and this experience must not be forgotten as we respond to the continuing migration of peoples into our midst. As Christians and United Methodists, in my case, we're called to love the stranger in our midst and to treat that stranger as we would our own family. So we must be a church that welcomes the immigrant into our cities, our towns, our neighborhoods, our churches, and our homes. We must keep ourselves open to the opportunity and blessing of entertaining angels unawares. And if we are truly to live out our mandate of having open hearts and open minds and open doors, as we seek to be as United Methodists, then we must work to ensure the just treatment of all strangers and foreigners living in our midst. So, sisters and brothers, it is in this spirit and with the foregoing that we, as United Methodists, have gone on record by our General Conference to oppose the building of a wall on our southern border. We desire to work with civic and legal organizations to support migrant communities affected by harsh immigration laws, and as the church, to provide wherever possible pastoral care and crisis intervention to refugees, newly arrived immigrants, documented or undocumented, and identifying and responding compassionately to their spiritual, material, and legal needs. And finally, just simply to say that hundreds and hundreds of congregations of all faith groups in this country are declaring themselves sanctuary churches from the East Coast to the West Coast and in between. And so I salute those congregations who are offering in the name of Christ our Lord sanctuary to all of God's children. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. And you will recall, members of the media, that in 2011, when Governor Perry declared not only sanctuary cities an emergency item, but I believe, if not one, maybe two special sessions on sanctuary cities, it was Latino advocacy groups, the faith community, and the business community that came together to defeat those bills. And we expect the same coalition to come together along with law enforcement to do the same this cycle. With that, we've been joined by Ramiro Cavazos, the CEO of the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to offer some perspectives on the nexus between legislation like this and the business community. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the reason Texas does so well economically is in large part because of our immigrant community. And for people to deny that is to deny reality. I recall a couple of tweets by the governor that were virtually back-to-back during the interim. One said, a prominent national magazine has listed the following Texas cities as the best cities to do business. And then in a subsequent tweet, he said, we must do something about these sanctuary cities. And there's a disconnect in the public policy between advocating for a safe and legal system and a reform of our immigration laws to match willing workers and willing employers in a legal system, and then trying to deal with some of the symptoms of the kind of the perverse system that we live in right now, which is attacking or dealing with issues like this and trying to elevate them to a prominence, candidly, which is out of whack with reality. So with that, I'd like to invite Ramiro Cavazos to talk about the contribution of immigrants to the Texas economy and to business. Thank you for being here, Ramiro.
Thank you, Representative Anchia, and to Chairman Anchia, and to everyone that's up here. I really value the work that our political leaders provide to the Texas community. I'll be brief. I represent the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. We have 1,300 members. Many of them are small businesses. We were founded in 1929 in San Antonio as the first Hispanic business organization in America. Today, we're the largest in San Antonio. We're independent, and we believe that our future is dependent on our legacy as a country. More than 230 plus years, this country was built by immigrants. In fact, as I share the information that is so factual today that I want to share with you to support this argument that we need to fight sanctuary cities, any type of legislation that would threaten any of us. We're all here to create economic development for this great nation. It is the largest economic power in the world. However, when you look at the legacy of our country, today 1 out of every 10 jobs in America is a job created by an immigrant, and that's a fact. Another fact, today 40% of Fortune 500 companies in America, creating millions of jobs, 40% of Fortune 500 companies are founded by an immigrant or the son or the daughter of an immigrant. Facts. Another fact, today Texas is the 10th largest economy in the world. Last year we surpassed Russia's economy and we surpassed Canada. So as our own economy, so goes the rest of the country and so will go the rest of the nation. Immigrants are economic migrants. They come to this country as we have, all of us, whether we're from Ireland or from Italy or from Germany. In fact, the largest ethnic group in America are not Hispanic Americans, they're German Americans. Many of them don't practice their culture anymore. They don't wear lederhosen. But in our culture, the Hispanic American culture, it gets rejuvenated every day. In many instances, people who have come here on working visas, 60% of the folks that are here considered undocumented are people that have come here for work, to do the work that no one else is willing to do or wants to do in our country. So we're proud to stand here representing the business community because the economic engine of our country is reliant on immigrants. And we will continue to come up to Austin to fight any bill that threatens or tries to label or tries to codify anyone just because of the color of their skin or whether they might look different or from another country. We don't believe in profiling. We believe in treating people as they are, equally and with respect. So in conclusion, we stand strong with Chairman Anchia and the Bishop and everyone that's up here. And we do need a coalition of people to work together. We cannot take for granted any longer the issues that are happening in our country today. We've already seen what can happen if we don't exercise our opinion. And I'm excited about how our communities in America, all communities, whatever ethnic background, are mobilizing to do the hard work to make sure that this country continues to fulfill its legacy, and that is a country that is providing economic prosperity to anyone that wants to work. And that's exactly what our immigrants in Texas are needing, no matter what country they're from. So on behalf of the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, we're proud to be here today representing our chairman of the board, Dr. Esteban Lopez, himself an MD, an MBA, who was born in Mexico and has the responsibility of running I know the Texas region as the medical officer for Blue Cross Blue Shield. Those are the kinds of success stories that we're about at the Hispanic Chamber, and we're going to continue to create those success stories to fuel our economy in our nation. Thank you very much, Representative Anchia.
Thank you, Ramiro. All right. So a little bit of housekeeping before we take questions. You will have these infographics available to you digitally and then in hard copy, and I believe the hard copies are over here on the table. Summer's pointing to them now. And lastly, we have a number of quotes from law enforcement that are available about how these types of legislation make Texas less safe. And those will be available to you there as well. And we were happy to send any of these things to you digitally. Para nuestros medios de comunicación de habla hispana, ¿necesitan comentarios actualmente o esperaremos después para hacer preguntas? Okay, muy bien, muy bien. Okay, so we'll do some, y van a tener miembros, todos los miembros el grupo que están disponibles para hablarles en español. Very good. We're happy to take questions. Julian Aguilar, no, I'm sorry. Brandy Grissom from the Dallas Morning News.
This morning on Fox, Governor Abbott said that local officials like the sheriff here in Travis County should be kicked out of office if they support sanctuary policies. I'd like to know your reaction to these comments.
Well, I mean, that is broader than the subject matter of our discussion today, but I don't know how the governor would suggest to do that. Typically, people are elected by the voters. Democracy, in fact, works, and unless the governor wants to be king and remove people from office unilaterally, then I think the people of Travis County will have an opportunity to speak on the sheriff, the governor, and all other elected officials when they stand for re-election.
So,
Marty Sladen.
as you know, President Trump today is supposed to announce a border wall. What do you think about the potential efficacy of such a wall?
Well, people need to keep in mind that we have a 700-mile border wall already on our southern border, so this is not a novel concept. There are a lot of problems with that wall, and I think Energy Secretary and former Governor Rick Perry had it right when he said, the minute you build a 20-foot wall, the market for 21-foot ladders goes through the roof. And even at its most effective, when federal officials at Department of Homeland Security were questioned about the efficacy of the wall, they noted that it might slow somebody down by, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. So we are spending billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. We're taking millions of acres of private land through government eminent domain. We are harming the environment in order to satisfy a campaign promise of the president, but I don't think by any measure, including by many Republicans who have run for president, do they feel that a border wall would be particularly effective.
Senator Garcia, if I may. The arguments against the 2011 proposal were that victims of crimes or witnesses to crimes are not going to come forward. The bills currently as filed SB4 and the companion legislation, HB 889, they have those provisions already included in the original draft, and they also say that local law enforcement can't enforce immigration laws unless they're working with immigration officials. I guess what's known as the 287G program. So is the concern here rogue cops or a broad interpretation of the bill itself that still allows officers to...
Well, I think the changes that were made are actually even broader and more burdensome on the sheriffs, and I think it would probably violate the Supremacy Clause. I think it would probably be held unconstitutional because it's actually suggesting that working together with immigration, that local law enforcement can search, can do all sorts of things, and I think that would clearly violate the Constitution. I think it would probably open us up to more racial profiling and probably to a lot more litigation on claims of intrusion and things that happen on the street. So I just think it's just bad public policy, and it would just make community policing even more difficult, and it would certainly weaken any opportunities for police departments to do more outreach and work more for our communities. We've seen what's already happening in some cities across America where there's tension and conflict. We should be about making change to ensure that we get rid of those conflicts. So it's just a bad bill, and I just really, again, urge all my colleagues to say no to this bill.
If I could follow up on, you mentioned the Supremacy Clause. President Trump is also expected to issue executive orders pretty much mandating that local law enforcement officials comply with ICE. So is this a moot point that happened?
It may be. Now, so two things, Julian. On the prior question, we have to be focused on every bill related to this subject matter. So, our comments are just generally on all the bills and not just on the Senate bill that you referenced. So there are a lot of really bad bills out there, and we're dealing with them en masse. The second thing is this may become a moot point for the state of Texas, and the fight may move to Congress on this issue. But we have to be ready for what is in front of us right now. And if President Trump issues some executive orders on this, then the arena of this battle moves to Washington and not Austin.
Julian, you have to, even if it shifts to Washington, all that does is set up the litigation and the court action based on the Washington law. Because we have to remember, and this is probably the most confusing part about this topic, is detainers are just a request to hold. They're not orders from a court. They're not a final finding. So someone can say no. It's sort of like someone saying, your loved one saying, will you close the door, dear? And you can just choose to close the door or not. But if they say, honey, you better close the door, that's an order. You're going to say, yes, dear, and do it. The bottom line is that these are administrative procedures, and police officers and local law enforcement are not equipped or trained to identify any document out there. And it's just a misplacement of priorities and undue direction from the state.
And that's a really good point that the senator raises, and I hope everybody understands this, that ICE detainers are not warrants. They do not have the force of law. They are simply requests by ICE to hold someone. And it is simply the initiation of an investigation by ICE that the person may not be here with lawful status. And in fact, we have seen a number of different cases across the country where U.S. citizens have been held for long periods of time on ICE detainers unlawfully in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and there's been litigation against local municipalities that has cost them a lot of money in legal fees and in penalties and in jury awards related to these unlawful detainers. And so, the question is, I have not seen for a problem that is this tiny, really a rounding error of a rounding error, I have not seen that our local law enforcement has been, that we should suddenly have the state insert itself in the decisions of local law enforcement, because there are plenty of good reasons why someone may not want to honor an ICE detainer. There's no room at the jail. That person actually proved that they're a U.S. citizen. There's been a coding problem or a name match problem, which has happened on a regular basis. There may also be the situation where the person is just deemed not to be either a risk or a flight risk by local law enforcement. So when you look at that little person's shoes, I mean, that is the scope of the issue that we're talking about. Yet we're spending so much time in legislative oxygen as if this were the most pressing issue for the state, and it really is about something else. It really is about demonizing and attacking the immigrant community, most of which is Latino. And I think as the Mexican-American Legislative Caucus, we find it puzzling at best and very ugly at worst when members of the legislature want to come back session after session and get their vote on an immigration-related issue, when they try to create this boogeyman and scare everybody about sanctuary cities, when the issue really should be left up to local law enforcement. Any further questions, Marty?
Is litigation a possibility with some of these bills?
Too early to tell. The two issues are we don't know. Well, clearly, if we get a bill that mirrors SB 1070, that's already been ruled unconstitutional in large parts. So you will definitely see litigation there. On these other bills, we don't know what's going to pass. When something passes, we can react and have a legislative strategy. And then there may be a federalization of this issue as well, which would change the calculus. Okay, everybody, thank you. Members will be available for comments for your local stations. Thank you.